You know, have you ever thought about English literature, not as just some long list of books you have to read, but as a single epic story? I mean, a story written by thousands of authors over thousands of years, with one character right at the center of it all, the English language itself. So let's dive in and turn to the very first page of this incredible story.
So here's the big question we're going to tackle in this explainer. How did the language and the stories from this one tiny little island grow to become such a global literary force? It's a huge question, and to find the answer, we have to go way back to the very beginning, to a time of warriors and songs.
All right, let's kick off our story in what we call the Dark Ages. This is a time before England was even really, well, England. A time when stories weren't written down in books, they were sung out loud. So, picture this. The Romans have packed up and left, and these Germanic tribes, the Angles and the Saxons, start to settle in. Their literature, it was all oral. Think of these epic poems about heroic warriors in massive battles, like Beowulf, passed down from one person to the next around a roaring fire. And then, in 597, boom, everything changes. Christianity arrives.
And this right here is a massive shift, a total game changer. Because with Christianity came literacy. For the very first time, stories were actually being written down. But the monks weren't writing down those old warrior poems. Nope, they were busy translating the Bible and writing about the lives of saints. So that heroic oral tradition, it starts to fade away, and it's replaced by this new, written, religious one. The first chapter of our story was now officially on paper.
Let's jump ahead now to the next crucial chapter, a moment in history where the English language itself really had to fight for its own survival. Okay, so in 1066, the Norman conquest happens, and it turns everything completely upside down. The new rulers from France, they bring their language with them, and suddenly, French is the language of the court, of the law, of all the powerful people. English? Well, English was seen as the rough, crude language of the common folk who'd been conquered. For almost 300 years, it was basically pushed to the sidelines.
And then along comes a hero for the English language, a man named Geoffrey Chaucer. And he makes this incredibly bold, revolutionary choice. Instead of writing in French or Latin, the fancy, prestigious languages, he writes his masterpiece, the Canterbury Tales, in the everyday English that real people actually spoke. By doing that, he proved that English wasn't just some language for farmers. It was a language capable of creating truly great literature. The torch was officially reclaimed.
And that torch would soon be picked up by the single most influential writer in the history of the language. And it all happens during this period of absolutely explosive creativity we now call the Renaissance. So what's with this number, 1,700? Well, that is the estimated number of common English words that William Shakespeare is credited with either inventing or making popular. I'm talking about words like eyeball, swagger, and fashionable. The man didn't just use the language, he was literally building it. But honestly, his real genius went way beyond just making up words. Before Shakespeare came along, plays were often pretty simple, straightforward stories about good fighting evil. Shakespeare's revolution was creating characters with these deep, messy, and totally relatable inner lives. Characters like Hamlet, they weren't just good or bad. They were absolutely full of doubt and ambition and all this psychological conflict. He completely changed what a story could even be. Okay, let's move on to the next great shift in the story. After absolutely dominating the stage, English storytelling found a new and much more personal home inside the pages of a book. So how did the novel, this brand new art form, just suddenly pop up? Well, it was really a perfect storm of events. You see, the printing press made books way cheaper. A growing middle class wanted to read stories about people just like them. And then, and this is fascinating, a censorship law in 1737 made it really tough to produce new plays. So, where did all that creative energy go? You guessed it, into writing novels. And so this first generation of novelists, they created a whole new literary form. You've got figures like Daniel Defoe and Henry Fielding, who was actually a playwright pushed into writing novels by that very same law.
And so crucially, you have Aphra Behn, who is recognized as the very first professional female novelist, totally paving the way for countless women to come after her.
So now we're entering a period of, well, dueling ideas. It's like a literary clash between raw emotion and cold industry, between the individual and society. First up, you have the Romantics, poets like Wordsworth, Shelley, and Keats. They basically rejected the cold, hard logic of the previous era. For them, truth wasn't found in reason, it was found in powerful emotion, in the incredible beauty of nature, and deep inside the inner world of the individual.
But reality soon came biting back. The Victorian era was all about the Industrial Revolution. We're talking factories, sprawling cities, and really rigid social rules. So, novelists like Charles Dickens became these great social commentators, using their stories to shine a light on the poverty, the inequality, and the harsh realities of this new industrial world.
You know, for centuries, the story of English literature had really been one of evolution, of gradual change. But now, it was about to face a full-blown revolution, a complete shattering of all the old ways of doing things. World War I. The absolute horror of trench warfare, plus these groundbreaking new ideas from thinkers like Freud, just shattered all those old Victorian ideas about progress and order. The world suddenly felt fragmented, chaotic, uncertain. I mean, how could you possibly tell a traditional story about a world that just didn't make sense anymore?
The answer was modernism. Writers like Virginia Woolf and James Joyce basically threw out the old rulebook. They ditched linear plots and instead focused on the internal psychological reality of their characters. They used these radical new techniques like stream of consciousness to try and capture thought itself right there on the page. Literature was turning inward, reflecting a world that was breaking apart in ways nobody could have ever expected.
And that fracturing, it wasn't just psychological, it was geopolitical. As the British Empire started to decline, something truly remarkable began to happen. The story of English literature was no longer trapped on one island. It now belonged to the entire world. And this wasn't about just imitating what came before. It was about appropriation and total reinvention. Writers from former colonies took the English language and they made it their own. Authors like Chinua Achebe in Nigeria used the language of the colonizer to tell the story of the colonized. R.K. Narayan in India created these brand new fictional worlds. Jean Rhys in the Caribbean wrote back to the classic English books, challenging all of their assumptions. They weren't just adding a new chapter to the story, they were fundamentally changing its entire perspective. So we end up right back where we started, with this single, epic story. From songs sung around a fire to novels being read all across the globe, the English language has been this incredible vessel for our shared human experience. But the story is far from over. I mean, its future is being written right now, not just in one country, but in every corner of the world. The only question left is, what will that next chapter say?